This is Living the RV Dream, episode 310 for Friday. What date is it? Friday, February 2nd, February already, 2024. And this is the video version recording. And I rambled a lot more on the audio version. But today, we're just going to have an interview. We're interviewing Desiree Van Welsum, and she's writing a series of books. The Long Way Home, it is called. And well, without further ado, here's the interview. Our guest today is Desiree Van Welsum, and she's written two beautiful coffee table books here about her travels in the East Coast. Well, without further ado, welcome to the show, Desiree. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, Traveling Robert. It's really an honor to be on your show. We're big fans. We've followed you from our beginning. Actually, you're part of our beginning, as you already know, and as I've also mentioned in the book. So thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great to see my name and next to two other people that I also follow, of course. So it's great being in good company there in the acknowledgments of your book. By the way, did I pronounce your name correctly? I know you're from the Netherlands originally,
That's
right?
right. Yeah. In the Netherlands, they pronounce it Desiree, but here
Desiree.
everybody says Desiree.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
fine.
So,
I
uh,
come when I'm called, usually.
yeah. How long did you live in the Netherlands? For how for?
So I was born in the Netherlands, and I left the Netherlands when I was 18 years old.
Mhm.
In fact, the day of my last high school exam, I didn't even wait for graduation. I left straight away. And I moved to the south of France. I lived there for a few years. I started university there. From there, I moved to Nottingham in the UK. Then I moved back to France. I lived in Paris for a while, all this while studying. Then I moved back to the UK, did my PhD there, PhD in economics, started working in London, moved back to Paris, moved to Geneva, Brussels, um, and then to the United States, first to New York, then DC, and now we're in Florida.
So you were obviously very well traveled before you came to the United States.
Lots of
Europe. It
travel,
says
yeah.
here that you speak four languages. I'm assuming Dutch,
Yes,
English, French, and what's the fourth one?
German.
German, of course.
German,
Okay.
yes, yeah. I don't practice it very much anymore, but if I watch, a German TV series or a German movie, it comes back very quickly.
Mhm.
But
But
yeah,
yeah, it's definitely handy to know several languages, and
absolutely.
yeah, it's something you don't see as much on this side of
Yes,
the ocean. Well, I guess if you're born in a country that speaks English, you don't really have the need to
yes,
learn a foreign language. Where when I went to Amsterdam, I realized that 90% of the people speak
yes,
English. So
yeah.
and
And
probably
well,
several languages too.
I was at a conference once, and one of the speakers got up and he said, "I'm going to express myself in the world's first language, bad English."
But English,
Like,
yeah.
and it's true, like everybody speaks English,
Yeah.
and you can always understand and get yourself understood. So,
Yeah.
but I think it's funny because like in the United States, you can cover so many miles and go from state to state to state, and it's the same currency, the same language,
Mm.
the same politicians, whatever. But in Europe, like there's very small countries. Netherlands, very small country. Belgium is very small country. You drive an hour and a half, and you cross the entire country, and then it's a different language, and like everything's different.
Yes, it
And
is different. I did rent an RV in Finland a couple of years ago,
yes,
and even the propane tank connections will change from one country
yes,
to the next. So they told me, make sure
yes,
you fill up in Finland because in Norway it's totally different.
yes, exactly.
So
Now, the
it's
European
really
Union
cool.
tries to harmonize a lot of things, and they've been working on power plugs, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's
Yeah.
still there's
I
still a
mean, you
lot of
have
differences.
decades of
Yes,
at least they have the same currency now.
yes,
Well,
exactly.
coming back to your travels in the United States, how did you
Yes.
start your travels here?
Yeah, well, the RV travel was certainly very unexpected. We were working a lot, we were both doing jobs that had us working long hours and traveling a lot. We were away from home a lot. And I nearly died twice
Oh no.
back in 2014. And then the following year, my husband Jonathan, same thing, nearly died twice. And that just was a huge shock and realization, and we made a huge change in our lifestyle, and wanted to travel more and spend more time away from the office, and not the always on, always busy mentality. And so we bought a boat, and we spent several years traveling by boat up and down the East Coast to the Bahamas. Ended up moving to Florida even for the boat. So, we'd have the boat here, and then we bought a house in Florida. And then when COVID hit, actually, so just before COVID hit, we decided we were going to switch from a powerboat to a sailboat. So we sold the boat, and then COVID hit. So we were without a boat. A lot of boaters at that time really, there was a lot of confusion in the beginning. Nobody knew where to go. Were they allowed to go marina? So we weren't going to buy another boat straight away. But that meant we found ourselves for the first time in the summer in Florida. And, hurricane season came around. We have 4 dogs, 4 rescued beagles. And at the time, we also had 3 bunnies. And we're like, oh, how do we evacuate, the whole gang in a COVID safe way? And we're like, well, we got to get an RV. It's the only way, we could see that would work to safely evacuate everybody and, be self-reliant. So we thought, oh, we'll just buy an RV, except everybody else in the country thought the same thing. There were no RVs whatsoever. I had never considered an RV. I didn't know anything about them. I didn't like them. I never in my life thought I'd be traveling in an RV. And so we were phoning around, and finally some dealership in Jacksonville, which is quite far away from us, said, oh, I have one coming in that's not sold yet. Because basically everything that was going to the dealerships was already sold before it even hit the lot. So he said, I have one. We're like, fine, we'll take it. So we bought it sight unseen, and they brought it to us, put it in our driveway. And we're like, oh, we have an RV. And it was a 17-foot travel trailer. It was a Coachman Clipper. And I actually loved it. It's amazing how well designed the layout and the storage is, because it had a queen bed. It had 2 bunk beds for the dogs and the rabbits. It had a separate shower and toilet, a dinette, it had everything in 17 feet. It was absolutely amazing. But so we're like, well, how does this work? So I Googled something like how to connect the black hose or whatever, how to empty the black tank on an RV. And some YouTube videos popped up. I had never watched anything on YouTube. I know a lot of people watched like sail video, like Sailing with the Winds and the Vagabond and all that, but I'd actually never been on YouTube, so it was new for me. And we started watching them, and and then they make suggestions. So we, we came across your channel, and we were watching it, and we're like, wow, that's actually really fun. We should try that. So we took the trailer, and especially also to make sure everything worked, so that if we did need it, at least it would work. And we went to Key Largo, and we're like, wow, it's in the middle of COVID, and we're in the Florida Keys, and we're still in our own little home. This is amazing. So we watched more videos. I think we watched your entire catalog. And I'm like, well, this is really fun. Let's do a road trip. And before we knew it, we had done 8 months on the road in our 17-foot travel trailer. We did stop at the Hershey show that first year, and we ordered another RV. So now we have a Super C, a little bigger and a little bit more space. But yeah, so it was completely unexpected, unplanned. We weren't campers. I've never been camping. I always joke we're accidental RVers, and we're bad campers. Like, I don't like s'mores, and I don't like getting smoke in my clothes, but we're definitely RVers and road trippers, and enjoy going all over the country. We've done all 48 states now, all the lower 48 states.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think we're kind of similar in that sense. To me, the RV is more like a moving hotel room kind of thing,
Yes,
that I don't have to
yes,
live out of a suitcase. I mean, I do have
exactly.
warmed up to doing campfires and some of the camping activities, but still, I also never camped before buying the
Yes,
RV.
yes,
So you've been to all the lower 48 already. Are you planning on going to
yes.
Alaska at some point?
We are. We saw your series, of course. I'm a little worried about the roads, and having support available if stuff breaks down, because we all know that usually stuff does break down.
Mhm.
But so this year we're actually planning to go to Canada, but on the East Coast. And then hopefully next year, we're planning to do the West Coast of Canada and hopefully Alaska as well. It's a big step, though. It's really, really far away. But yeah, it's very appealing. It's beautiful and very wild, very different, from what we're used to as well. Like we don't get those kinds of landscapes in Europe.
Yeah, and North America is such a huge continent in that sense.
Yes.
You have here we are in South Florida, which is basically tropical,
Yes.
and you have all kinds of climates, and that's one of the things that I tell everybody. You drive west, and within 5 days, you're gonna see all different climates, all
Yes.
different seasons.
And the landscapes as well. I think so. We just did last in 23. We did Route 66 from start to finish, and I just thought it was so fascinating to see how the landscape gradually, sometimes not so gradually, changes as you move west. Sorry, and yeah, it's beautiful and quite unique and spectacular to see and to experience. Like just every day as you drive, like you say, with your own home, it still kind of baffles me. Yeah, and that's what I love about RVing. It's not the RV, it's what it allows us to do. That, you can be exploring some amazing, Bryce Canyon or whatever, and you do your Navajo Loop hike, and then you go home.
Yeah,
You're,
exactly. And the view out your window changes, every
yes,
time you move.
exactly. It's
Um,
amazing.
Talking about Navajo Loop, I'm gonna be doing that for the first time, hopefully this year. Any
Nice.
place, any favorite? I don't want to call it a favorite place because, at least for me, that's incredibly difficult to pick
Yeah.
one. But is there one place that you can go back to, several times over the years, and it just feels good being there?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. And it's really hard. Like everybody always says, what's your favorite, this or that, and it's almost impossible to answer. I
Yeah,
usually end up answering whatever the most recent one is because that's
I do
what's
the
on my
same thing,
mind.
but
Um, but there's also things that like really surprised me, either because I was just not well informed, even though I did my research. But for example, South Dakota was a huge surprise to us, and Oregon, especially the Oregon coast, like it was amazing. Loved it so much. Um, and then there's other things that, we'd either already been to or we'd seen so much about online, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. For example, Niagara Falls. I was excited to go, but I was also a little worried, like, you know, is this going to be a disappointment? Is it a tourist trap? And as soon as we got there, I knew I loved it, and I still want to go back to it too. And yes, it is
Mhm.
touristy, but it's touristy for a reason.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. There are
it's
certain
just
places,
yes,
that
exactly.
you
So, and it's actually funny because every time we go around, we go to a new place or a place we already knew, and we're like, oh, we should definitely come back here. And like I'm working with this list of things I want to do, and the more I check off, the more I'm adding. Because like every time you talk to people, you discover new things, and like that list gets longer and longer. And then I have this other list like, oh, we want to come back here. We want to come back here. I'm like, when? There's so many places to go, and see and go and see again, because also every time you go back somewhere, it's different. There's different people, different climate, things change. So it never gets old for sure.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of places that, we've already been to several times for certain things and definitely want. In fact, it was funny when we started Route 66. We started in Chicago. On day 2, we already said to each other, oh, this is so nice. We should do it again. And now we've
Mhm.
decided that we want to do it again in both directions because it's different. You see things differently when you go west or when you go east. So that's
Absolutely.
also on the list.
Sometimes the view out your rear view mirror, you're like, oh, look at that mountain back there that you
Yes,
cannot see
exactly.
it forward.
Yes. Or even, like the Pacific Coast Highway,
Yes.
whether you drive it north or south, it's a different experience somehow. So
Mm.
yeah, definitely a lot of places that are worth going back to if we
And
have
what
time.
any place that you haven't been to yet that is like on that, you know, quote unquote bucket list?
Oh, many places. We were just planning, even in places that we've been to a lot of time, there's always that, for example, St. Augustine. We've been there so many times, even with our boat, and somehow we never went to the Castillo de San Marcos.
I've never
So it's
been
like,
there either.
I know, right? It's like, I don't know why. It's always something that I wanted to do, but I just somehow never did. And we've been to, for example, Antietam, the uh, the the uh, the battlefield, the Civil War battlefield. But we've never been to Gettysburg, so I want to go to Gettysburg as well. And just the whole, like, there's so many places everywhere. There's always something else to see. And I think most of the places that we're going to, bucket list is always such a funny thing. Like, I always have like a wish list, places I'd really like to go and see. So I guess you could call it the bucket list.
I mean,
But sometimes,
that was just a movie that came out, right? And then everybody started
yes, it
calling it the
became a
bucket
thing.
list. It became a
Yeah,
thing. But
yeah,
yeah, to be
exactly.
honest, it's just a a wish list, and there are I'm sure priorities in that list. That
Yes,
places
exactly. Yeah.
that have
Yeah, and
more.
that's so when we do our planning, we kind of pick, the big things first, or the things that we definitely want to see, and then we see, what else can we fit in the time that we have, and we try and fit in as many of those things. Every time I'm on Instagram or wherever and I see something I want to see, I write it down. I know you put a pin on your map. I wish I was that organized. I just write it down in a note. And then, when we start planning, it's like, oh, can we fit this in? Can we fit that in? And yeah, try and see as much as we can.
Will you go back to sailing at some point?
Salem, Massachusetts?
Not sailing, like
Oh,
sailing on a
sailing.
boat. Yeah.
Um, Probably. I think so. I think we live in Florida, so I think it would be nice to have at least a little power boat just to go up and down the ICW with and have some fun with. We have a little sailing dinghy, but honestly, we haven't used it since COVID, basically. I
Mhm.
don't even know why, because we could. We just, you get wrapped up in all the other stuff and we haven't done it. But it's very nice to be out on the water, and sailing in particular. There's no sound other than the sound of the boat going through the water and, the wind on the sail. And it's really quite amazing. So I think we'll do that. I don't think we'll go back to a big boat because it's big problems, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I say,
There's
break out another 1,000, right? That's what that boat
exactly.
stands for.
People always ask me, "Are you, don't you miss the boat?" And it's like, no, not really. Like sometimes I get, Facebook memories or whatever, or I see places and it's like, oh, that was really nice. And then I remember, oh, but you remember the generator didn't work, or we had to fix this, or or that broke. And honestly, there aren't many places that you can get to by boat that you can't also get to by RV.
Hmm.
Other than the Bahamas and the dry Tortugas, you can basically go everywhere with the RV. And so the first year, so the trip that's in the books, we actually met up with a lot of our boating friends who were going up the coast to Maine or wherever they were going, but we were meeting up with them on the coast. They were on their boat and we were in the RV. And this year we were planning Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and Prince Edward Island. And several of my boating friends were like, oh, we're going to be there this summer.
And not a lot of
So
people do that. What it's called the Great Loop. So I
yes,
guess
on the boat.
that's yeah.
Yes. So a lot of people do, and I think it's one of those things that you can say you've done it. But there's actually, well, we couldn't do it because our boat was too big for some of the bridges on the
Hmm.
Great Loop. But there's actually a section of the Great Loop, sort of the western part of it when you come down from Chicago. That's actually not that interesting. So I also know of a lot of people who do sort of the eastern side of the loop and loop around Florida.
Hmm.
But then add on a loop, for example, in Canada, they go or to the Great Lakes or something like that, rather than do the kind of boring part on the west side of the loop. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a huge deal. It's a big thing, and there's people who've done it multiple times, and every time you do it, you get a flag, and you get promoted from like a yellow flag to a silver flag and a gold and a platinum.
Yeah.
So people can recognize each other on the water and see that they're doing the loop or they have done the loop. It's quite
Yeah.
fun.
That's very interesting.
Are you
That's
thinking of doing it?
Well, first I will have to get a boat, right?
Yes, that would
and,
help.
and a boat with a cabin, something that I can live out of.
Yes,
So I don't know, maybe someday, but it's not something like for this year or next year, or we'll see. Life
yes,
is short, and then sailboats, they seem to be like a lot of work. I know people like the sensation of being powered by the wind and all that, but
yes,
it seems like a lot of work, putting the different sails. And I watch the winds and the vagabonds
yes.
as well, and
Well, it
sometimes
depends because the newest sailboats, everything is basically automated. Like
you
you
don't have to
can
be cranking the the
No,
sails up
yeah,
and
no,
down.
it's
No.
all press button now, actually, a lot of it. Even on the like big sailboats, a lot of it is automated. So you can sit in the cockpit and just press a button and the sail will unfurl or come back in or lower. So but I think for us, when we were thinking of switching to a sailboat, it was really about slowing down the pace of travel
Hmm.
and being more about the journey than the destination. But I think in the end we found it's more about the destination, and sailing takes too long.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have a small sailboat, and we have this sailing dinghy that we took out on Lake Worth a lot, and you just go around for fun.
Yeah. Hmm.
But I think if you're traveling, honestly, even even when we're on the water, mm, I'm going to say at least 75 or plus% of the time, sailboats are motoring.
You
They're
really,
not
yeah.
sailing. They're
Hmm.
motoring.
Yeah.
So you're
Well,
just a
so
slow
that kind of
motorboat.
defeats the purpose. That kind of
Yes,
defeats the
they're
purpose. Yeah.
basically all slow motorboats. They're not, a lot of the time they're not sailing. So yeah. But yeah, being on and near the water, I think there's always something special to it. And you can still get that with the RV. You can rent a boat.
Hmm.
We've been on several different lakes, Lake Powell or whatever, and rent a boat for a day, and you can still get that fun, and then you can give it back to somebody to deal with the problem. So it's
Yeah, that's
quite
true.
a nice compromise.
That's true. Yeah, at some point I had this crazy idea of actually towing a boat around the country, and
Yes,
dropping it in different bodies of water. But
yes.
some people have told me that's a bad idea. So more
I
research
don't
shall go
know.
into
We've
this.
also talked about that. It's
Yeah,
a
like
it's an
a
appealing idea. We've met some people who did that. They had two cars, they were towing a trailer and then a boat, and they would go to different lakes or different parts of the coast and drop their own boat in. It does limit you a little bit in the size of the boat that you can have.
Mhm.
And it adds a lot of logistics being, towing two things.
Yeah.
Um, Although when you've seen, I'm sure out west, there's people who triple tow.
Out west, yeah, out west it's totally a thing. Yeah, you see
It's the
a
Wild
truck
West.
towing a fifth wheel, and the fifth wheel is towing a boat behind.
Yes,
Now, I was
exactly.
thinking more like a small class C towing a boat than doing
Yes,
like
yes.
like
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
So
I think that'd be fun. But then there's also things like boat clubs, Freedom Boat
mhm.
Club and others, where, you're a member, and then wherever you show up in whatever location where they have a business, you can just take out a boat from them. And that's a quite nice option too, I think.
Oh, Desiree, your books are beautiful. Let me show them here on camera real quick.
Thank you.
You have part one and part two, mostly along the eastern side of the USA. I'm
Yes,
assuming these are just part one and two of a longer series. Are you
that's
working
right.
on part
So
three and four?
absolutely. I've started working on part 3 and 4. So that was the trip we did in 2022, where we did all of the Midwest and the mountain states. And then part 5 and 6 will be our trip that we did last year, where we did the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, Route 66, and all of the West Coast states, and some other things that we weren't able, to fit in and that were still on the bucket list. So we went back and checked off some more of those items. But yeah, that's in the works already. And I write a lot while we're on the road, actually. So I've written all of the books on my phone
Oh,
in
really?
notes. Yeah,
Wow.
I've written all of it. I edit all of it on my phone. And the pictures were all taken on my iPhone.
Well,
And what I try to do with the pictures, so there's a lot of pictures in there. I try to really give people the feeling that they're there. And so the text, I try to describe our experience and combine it with some history or fun facts or, things that we,
mhm.
learned along the way, but I try not to over process the picture. So I'm trying to show them really as it was, because a lot of the time, you see pictures on Instagram or whatever, and then you get to the location and it's like, it doesn't look
Yeah.
anything
No,
like
they
this.
yeah
And
they crank the saturation all the way to
exactly,
100, and yeah, and the
exactly.
filters. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
never
So
the same
I,
as
I try
reality.
to really, like, if people look at the pictures in my book and they decide they want to go check it out for themselves, that's what they're going to get. That's what it's going to look like. And it's really, I'm trying to inspire people to go and, to as many places as possible if they can. And otherwise, at least they can, explore them through the pages of the books if they can't travel. And I know there's a lot of people who will not be able to travel. We're very fortunate, all of us who are traveling, that
Yes,
we can.
absolutely.
Um, and I'm very aware that, not everybody is afforded that opportunity. So at least they have the books, and I try to put as much as I can in there of what it is like to experience the different places and show as much as I can.
So where can people buy this book if they want, or if they want to see it, or if they want to buy it? I'm sure you're on Amazon and everywhere else, right?
Yes. So the paperback has just become available as well. So they're now available in hardback and paperback on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Walmart.
So you just search for The Long Way Home,
Yeah, or my name. I don't know. Is
Desiree
this showing
Van
mirrored?
Wilson. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because I thought I had an original title, but there are other long way homes. So, but if you search for my name, that's the two
Yeah.
things that
And
come
then
up.
your social is generally RV cruising. I see the
Yes.
sign behind you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it was actually funny because I had an Instagram account for, when we were boating. It's at Yacht Ambassador. And then when we got the RV, it's like, well, I should document, our travels in the RV as well, because that's fun and new. And, a lot of people in my world were new to RVing. Actually, several boating friends bought an RV during COVID and are now also RVing. But so I go, what should we call it? And so I thought RV cruising, it's like cruising on the boat, but in the RV. So it's RV cruising.
I see, and
And the
it's
long way home, it actually came from a song. And somewhere in the song it said, "Let's take the long way home." And I thought, oh, that's exactly what we do, because we're always adding on another. Like, we're starting to head home, we're like, oh, let's do that as well. Let's do that as well. So we're always taking the long way
yeah,
home.
sounds better than the scenic route or something like that,
Yes,
which is
exactly.
basically what it is. Let's take the
Yes,
scenic route and take our time,
exactly.
and sometimes you
And
don't
then
really want to
there's
get back home.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's also the website. So we have a website, thelongwayhometravels.com, and you can find the information for the books there, and there's the purchasing links for the books, but there's also more information and lots of pictures about so the forthcoming books, the lots of pictures from the Midwestern mountain states and from everything we did last year. There's some pictures of the RV. There's pictures and little stories about the dogs, our 4 dogs that travel with us everywhere. So that's all on the website as well.
All right. Well, we're gonna put links in the video description and the podcast show notes
That's
to
great.
your Amazon book and the website. So
That's great. Thank
the
you.
longwayhometravels.com.
Yes. Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right,
and I
Desiree.
hope, I hope that people are inspired one way or another, but that they feel that joy, that, like, this, it's not nervousness, but like this butterfly in the stomach when you go somewhere new, and the joy of doing something new or trying something new. And it's actually funny because, like, we've started applying that at home now as well. Like, we're trying to be really intentional. It's very easy to be complacent and think, oh, I have time to do that, and there's so many things where we always said, oh, we should go there sometime. And now we try, when we're home, we're like, if we were here on one of our trips, what would we be doing? And now
Yeah.
we're visiting all these places at home. We've lived here 7 years, we never saw. So we're trying
Yeah.
to be really intentional about that and do it at home.
Yeah, that's true. I think they call it a staycation or something like that, right?
Yes, yeah,
Visiting your
exactly.
local, and we never do it.
Exactly.
I live in Miami for like, it's this is one of the tourist meccas of the world, and we never go out.
Exactly. I
All
know.
right, Desiree, thank you so much for spending some time with us at the podcast
It
here,
was
and
lovely.
uh,
Thank you so
and
much
and
for
you've
having me
you've
again.
You've created a lovely book, and we'll
Thank
be
you.
following you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And say hi to Illy.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.